Hello world, Stephen Michael Zach here, and today we're taking a look at the Wellmaking HL800S. This is a bicolor light. It'll cost this much at the time of the recording of this video. Now I did buy this with my own money, so these are going to be my own brutal and honest opinions as always. So let's take a look at what comes inside the box. My own brutal and honest opinions as always. This is new to me. Inside the box, you're going to get the light itself. You're going to get the mount. You're going to get the power brick with the power cord. You're going to get one battery caddy. You're going to get a barrel-to-barrel plug. You're going to get the diffusion, which is Bowen's mount and already broken. The remote control, a carabiner, and of course the instructions. Okay, so let's take a look at build quality. Now, first off, we have the light here. You get two clicky dials on top, which feel okay. You do get a barrel plug or a V-mount battery here. It is either one or the other, but it does have an onboard Sony NPF. You get a spigot here, and on back, you get this very tiny screen. And on the front, you do have this old school Bowen's mount where you have to tighten it by the knob. Now let's take a look at the diffusion. This is made very cheaply. As you can see, this one the glue is already coming off and it's already falling apart. And there is rubber around the edge here. I guess that's so you don't like bang your head or something. But there you go. There you have it. It is what it is. Next, you have the power brick and the power cord, and I wish that the head leads were longer. And then you have this mount, and as you're going to hear, this is my favorite kind of mount. It is a teeth system mount. I absolutely hate these. Now, yes, it is made of plastic. You do get an umbrella holder, but there you go. There you have it. And next, let's talk about the power bank. This one actually broke. The power button does not work. Luckily, I got two of these, so I can show you how this works. But you're going to get power button, you're going to get your Sony NPF releases. You've got a USB port here. I don't know why. And of course, you have your barrel plug connector there. And you can attach this three different ways. You could either run a strap through here, through the provided thing here. There is a 1/4-20, so you can actually add this to a C-clamp and clamp that to your light stand. Or you can go ahead and use the carabiner and slide this through this little ring here and hang it that way. And finally, you do get a barrel-to-barrel plug. And you do get a very nice remote control. Now, keep in mind, you will need to supply your own AAA batteries with this. Okay, so let's install everything here. And we'll go ahead and turn that in. And we'll go ahead and lock this in like so. And we'll go ahead and tighten this so that it doesn't come down. So there we go. Now, one thing you will know that the spigot can come very, very loose, can actually unscrew. So I'll most likely glue that in place because it comes off once it's in this thing. Now, again, you could hear it's got those teeth, so you can't quite point it where you want it. But continuing on, let's go ahead and put on the dish here, the diffusion here. And of course, you have to make sure this is unscrewed almost all the way. And that just twists in like that. And then you just tighten that up. And there you go. There you have it. So let's take a look at the battery caddy now. I did buy two of these, and this one is already broken. So that will be returned. But let's go ahead and slap in some batteries here. And you do have these nice releases in the center. And I will say the build quality of this caddy is kind of cheap and chintzy. Again, this power button already broke, so it is what it is. And we'll go ahead and plug in the barrel plug here to the side of the light here. Turn this so you can see it. And then we'll go ahead and we'll hold down the power button. And you'll see that this has a whole bunch of green lights. These are not proper indicators. They immediately turn red. Even when all of these batteries are charged, some of them are turning red. So just know this is not a power indicator. And there is a bit of a fan here. It hasn't kicked on yet, but when I hold this down and turn on the light, there we go. That is powering. And again, as you can see, some of the lights have already turned red. So there you go. There you have it. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this on by holding the left button. And you do have your channel. You get your power indicator, your power, and of course, your Kelvin. Now, this thing goes from 6,500 Kelvin to 2,800 Kelvin. Now, there is a bit of a button here that'll jump from one extreme to the other. But watch what happens when I hold down this button. it'll jump to 6500 Kelvin at 100%. I hold this down and it'll jump to 2800 Kelvin. There is really no in between. So that is just something that happens. If you click this once quickly, you get control of your channels. It has up to 32 channels, so you can program up to 32 on your remote, and tapping that will lock it. Next, tapping the power button will send you into a special effects mode here. Now, there is nothing inside the instructions that lets me know what the special effects are, so I'm kind of guessing. I'm guessing that one is maybe TV. 2 is lightning, I believe. 3, I guess, is faulty bulb. 4 is actually this very nice candle slash fire, which I like. 5 is just something that flashes, and 6 is just the 2800 Kelvin version of that. And that is it. Those are the special effects that you get. And again, I'm guessing at what these special effects are because they are not in the instructions. Tapping that again, you'll go back into mode. Let's go to 3900 Kelvin, and let's turn this down to 1%. Now, I will say that on the other one, the fans ramped up quite loudly on this one, but with this, it doesn't seem to be too bad. Let's go to 100% power, but it doesn't seem to be too bad. So the fan noise may vary on these. Maybe this fan was just already broken and unbalanced. Again, this power button broke within less than a day. So that is something to keep in mind. So there you go. There you have it. And you can turn the light off by pressing the power button here, but you cannot turn it back on. So you'll need to hold that and until those lights go on. And on the other one, I heard the fan, and then you'll need to go to the actual unit and hold it down. And yes, if you turn this off, will it remember where you were? And that is a yes. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off by here. Turn it off here. And yes, it does remember where you were. And to release the batteries, you have these little battery releases here, and that works very quickly and very simply. Okay, so let's go ahead and slap in a Sony NPF battery here, and you will have to sort of kind of get this at an angle and slap it in, but it seems to go in just fine on this model. I do know that the other one was a little hard to get this battery in. I will say that if you have like the GVM batteries, let's pull the release here. The GVM batteries are a little bit thicker, so you will have just a little bit harder time putting them in, but they do work. And again, hold this down. And of course, it does work. So there you go. There you have it. Let's talk about this mount. It is that clicky teeth mount, and there's not really a way I can put rubber washers in here and fix it due to the type of mount it is, so I will be replacing the mount. Now, as you can see here, this does work with modifiers. However, when I put my 44-inch Parasnap and I tried even a Aperture Light Dome Mini, the light did not fill the entire softbox. You can't really see it here on camera, but it only filled a small portion. So adding a softbox to this is probably not going to do you any good. Okay, so this is about maybe arm's length away at 1%, and you could see how crazy bright this is. It is crazy, crazy bright. So let's go ahead and let's put on the modifier. And again, even with the modifier on, this is at 1%. It's not doing much to soften the light, and that's something I found with this. I'm going to shut this off now because it's blinding me. But that's something I found with this light is that even at 1%, this thing is crazy bright. And it does have very nice, clean, crisp shadows. Even with the diffusion on, it's a little bit less crisp, but you're still getting singular crisp shadows. Now, one thing I do like about this system is the fact that it does have a barrel plug. So yes, you can use a D-tap cable to barrel plug to power this. This is probably how I'll power it. I usually don't carry a lot of Sony NPFs. I really only use the NPFs sometimes to power my monitors, but I have been hooking into my V-mounts more often than not. But we'll go ahead and plug this in, and I'll show you. You can get 100% power via here. And let's go ahead and turn this on. And there you go. You do get power via that. So I would highly recommend using a V-mount battery with this system if you are going to use this. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on the light here, and I'm going to do 49, take the 49 and 5200 Kelvin. Now watch what happens when I turn on the remote here. The light automatically goes to whatever the remote was set to last. Yes, the remote does remember what you've been set to last, but if it's different on the light, you are going to lose you're going to lose basically what you've set the light to. So if you are setting these, if you are going to use the remote, make sure that it is set properly. Now, taking a walk around the remote here, you have your channels. You can definitely go up to, you can do all. And of course, this is the up and down button here. You can go all. Let's go ahead and hit channel. And you've got up to 32 channels here. And let's go ahead and hit the channel button to lock it. You can hit the power button here. And then hold that down once it starts flashing. Press it once, and you can go up in power. Now you'll note that this does go up very in kind of like jumps and levels, and you can't really tell until you get higher how bright it's getting. So that just works kind of okay. The brightness there. Now you can hit the CCT here, and you can turn up your CCT. You can hold it down, and it'll go quickly. Or you can press down here while it's still flashing, and it will go down in power. And press your CCT to lock it. Now, you do have a quick button to 2800 and 6500 Kelvin. So you can press that to jump to one to the other. And you can get into your special effects here by holding down the special effects button. And I will say that this remote has great viewing angles. And the same can be said for the viewing angles, even though this is small. The viewing angles are just fine on the back here as well. Okay, so here is the candle. Now, you will have to have the effects on at least 3% power. If it's down on 1 or 2% power, it actually won't work. So there you go. This is 3%. And let's go ahead and let's turn this up a little bit. And the brighter it gets, the more it seems to flicker. So that is just something to keep in mind. But I think it's very nice. It's very subtle. It's not like flashing at me like a lot of new lights do. So there you go. There you have it. That is the fire effect. And again, here we are at 1% power, and this is, arm's length away. That is super bright. Okay, so let's talk pros and cons, starting with the cons. Now, I will say that this diffusion doesn't really do much. And as you can see, the glue is wearing off. This is super cheaply made. And the way that this attaches, it just kind of, you have to sit here and you have to screw this in. And when it's in, it still moves around. So it's still got some play in it. So it's not something I'm going to be mounting on a moving vehicle. And also just very cheaply made. I would try to find something else. Next negative, again, is this locking thing here and the fact that the Bowens mount is attached. You can't take it off. You would have to remove these screws. And I think this little covering here, this covering would probably come off. So if you want to use it bare bulb, although you don't really need to because this thing is bright as all heck. Now this thing does have the spot flood mode here, but the spot flood is kind of meh. It only spots down a little bit. It's not as good as the Amaran LS60s. It's just not, or the Genray torpedoes. It's just not great. It'll give you a little bit, but I would highly suggest getting the projector mount or a snoot for this, and they do make a projector mount for this thing. The other negatives are when you're adjusting the light, you can accidentally press on these buttons because they're nice and large, so just be careful that you grab it up here and not press down here. And the rear screen is pretty darn small. I wish it were a little bit bigger and a little bit more viewable at angles. Another downside is you have your choice of only using the barrel port or, of course, the 70 NPF. So there you go. There you have it. And also this spigot, when it's locked in here, has a tendency to unscrew. So I will be getting some kind of glue to glue that in so that it doesn't spin around on me because I'm never going to take that off. Now let's talk about the special effects mode on this. The special effects mode are kind of meh. Lightning works, but the fire effect is quite interesting. It seemed the more power I gave it, the more it flickered. But it does at 3% have a very nice kind of flickery candle feel. So really good on that. The other special effects are just kind of there. And again, they're not in the instructions, so I don't know what the others are. I'm just guessing. Now, let's talk about this mount. I will most likely be replacing this mount. It is hard to point it in the direction that you want it because it has that teeth system. And again, I can't really drop washers in here. To have to find really small rubber washers to drop in here. So I will be replacing this mount. Now let's talk the Battery Caddy. While this one did not have a loud fan, the one that broke, actually the fan was had a little bit of a whine. So if you were standing like here, a few feet away, like a few inches away, you could hear it. But I didn't get that with the other one. So that is just something, your fan may be loud or it may not be. If it's 3 feet away, 5 feet away, the further away it is, the less you're going to hear it. This is not something you're going to put on top of somebody because it is super bright. And that will lead me to my next thing. Also, this power button broke, and this thing is plastic, so don't drop it. That leads me to the next thing is at 1%. This thing is still too bright. It is super bright, and you're going to have to diffuse this a couple of times, even at 1%. Now let's talk about the power brick here. The head leads are just way too small. I mean, you do get a little bit of head lead here, but to get up to the light, you get this little tiny thing. So I would highly suggest going out and getting, I don't have one here, but getting a longer one of these kind of tape recorder things. That will actually give you more height. So you could just leave this on the floor because again, there is no way to attach this to the light stand. You're going to have to buy a strap or some kind of caddy for it. Now let's talk about the remote. Another downside is whatever the remote is set to, if you set the light and then decide to turn this on, whatever's on the remote is going to switch over to where the light is. So make sure that when you set this thing, if you're using the remote, you use the remote first to set it up. Don't set it up and then turn on the remote. You're going to be very disappointed. And the final con is this thing skews super magenta, which is fine because lights green up over time, but it is way off the planking curve. You are going to need a correction gel with this, or you're going to need to use lights that have a plus minus green color correction feature to match this light. I believe it was negative 0.0058. And it had a delta UV of, and I believe it was a correction gel off by 1.8 green. So super magenta. If you're just using these lights, that's fine. But just know that these are pretty far off the planking curve, and you will need to add some correction gel or have other lights that correct. Now, from the cons to the pros, I get it. I see why photographers go crazy for this. Even at 1%, this thing is stupid bright. And when you're taking photography, you need bright lights. And this is very impressive for something that is this small. You do get a little bit of spot flood. It's not the best, but you do get it. There are multiple ways to power this, whether it's a V-mount through the barrel plug, the Battery Caddy, or a Sony MPF right on the side. I definitely get it. You could throw this in your suitcase. It is fantastic. The controls are very intuitive. The fire effect looks great. This does have a nice color range. So I will say that, and I really do love the remote. The remote works fairly well. It is an older version, an older remote, so it's a little bit slow, but I do like the fact that they do include a remote. You can add multiple of these on multiple channels. One thing I will say is I'm just a little disappointed in the diffusion. But other than that, I get it. This is a very powerful, strong, small light. And when you compare it to things like the Zhuin 60 watt, I can definitely see some trade-offs there. I think the Zhuin works better with modifiers, and it actually comes with its own mini softbox, which I happen to really love. But if you need something super bright, I would highly suggest this. I would highly suggest you take this and bounce it off a wall. Point this up at the ceiling or at a white wall and use these for fill-in. That's where I see these. Or if you're a photographer, definitely you can use these to light your subject. Also, you can slip in an umbrella, which is probably going to be the best way to diffuse this. Now, note if you are doing video and you want to get this dimmer, you're going to have multiple layers of diffusion. That is just how this light works. But I get it. I see the appeal. I see why people buy these. These are a specific light for a specific job. and they are very interesting. Probably not for my workflow, but they are very interesting. So there you go. There you have it. Those are my thoughts, but I want to know yours. So leave your questions and comments in the notes below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to mash the bell button to be notified when we drop a brand new video. And feel free to use the links below as it helps out the channel. I'm Stephen Michael Zach, and this is new to me.